The candlelight flickered across the empty chair, mocking him with each passing minute. David Chen adjusted his tie for the third time, checked his phone for the seventh, and felt his heart sink a little deeper into his chest. She wasn't coming. After 3 weeks of messages that had made him laugh until his sides ached, after conversations that stretched past midnight about everything from childhood dreams to favorite pizza toppings, after finally gathering the courage to suggest meeting in person, she had vanished. No text, no call, just silence and an empty seat where Hope used to sit. The waiter approached with sympathetic eyes, the kind that said he'd seen this scene play out 100 times before. "Can I get you anything else, sir?" David glanced at the untouched breadsticks, the 2 water glasses, one still full, and shook his head. "Just the check, please." Outside, the November rain had started, turning the Chicago streets into rivers of reflected neon. David stood under the restaurant awning, watching couples hurry past with shared umbrellas, their laughter cutting through the downpour. He'd taken the afternoon off work, had driven 40 minutes into the city, had even stopped to buy flowers that now sat wilting in his car. 34 years old, and he still didn't know how to read the signs. He was about to make a run for his car when he heard it. A child's cry, sharp and frightened, cutting through the white noise of the rain. Across the street, barely visible through the curtain of water, a woman sat on the steps of a closed library, clutching a small boy to her chest. She was young, maybe mid-20s, with dark hair plastered to her face and clothes that looked like they'd seen too many hard days. The child, maybe 4 years old, was crying those deep, exhausted sobs that come when someone is too tired to fight anymore. David's first instinct was to look away, to run to his car, drive home, and pretend this day had never happened. Chicago had thousands of stories unfolding every minute. This didn't have to be his, but his feet wouldn't move. He watched the woman try to shield the boy from the rain with her own body, watched her rock him gently, whispering something he couldn't hear. And in that moment, he saw his own mother, 28 years ago, sitting in their car in a grocery store parking lot, counting change to see if they could afford milk that week. He remembered how she'd turned to him with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes and said, "We're going on an adventure, baby. Sometimes you have to get creative with dinner." They'd eaten peanut butter sandwiches that night. He hadn't understood then that it was all she could afford. David stepped into the rain. By the time he reached them, he was soaked. Up close, he could see the woman was shivering violently, her lips tinged with blue. The boy had stopped crying but was staring at nothing, his eyes glassy and unfocused. "Excuse me," David said gently. "Are you okay? Do you need help?" The woman's head snapped up, and he saw the fear flash across her face, the instinctive terror of someone who'd learned that help often came with strings attached. She pulled the boy closer. "We're fine," she said, but her voice cracked on the words. "I don't mean to intrude," David said, crouching down so he wasn't looming over them. "But you're both soaked, and it's getting cold. There's a diner around the corner. Would you let me buy you both some hot food? We don't need charity." Her chin lifted with a pride that David recognized, the kind that was sometimes all you had left. "It's not charity," David said. I just got stood up on a blind date. I'm already dressed up, already took the night off work, and I'm going to eat my feelings either way. I'd really prefer some company. And honestly, you'd be doing me a favor. Eating alone after getting rejected is pretty pathetic." A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "That bad, huh?" She didn't even text to cancel. Just never showed. The woman looked down at her son, who had started shivering. David watched her weighing options, calculating risks, measuring her desperation against her fear. Finally, she nodded. The diner was one of those timeless places with red vinyl booths, and a menu that promised comfort in every item. David ordered hot chocolate for the boy, Marcus. His mother said his name was, and coffee for her. Her name was Elena. "Order whatever you want," David said, sliding the laminated menu toward her. "I'm serious. I had a big lunch planned that never happened." He watched Elena's eyes scan the prices before moving to the descriptions. When the waitress came, she ordered the cheapest sandwich. David ordered it too, along with fries, soup, and a slice of pie. "The pie's for Marcus," he explained. "Kids should always have dessert." As they ate, the story came out in fragments. Elena had been living in her car for 3 weeks, ever since her landlord had sold the building and the new owners had tripled the rent. She'd been working 2 jobs, but one had cut her hours, and childcare had eaten up what little she'd saved. She'd been trying to get Marcus into a shelter, but the family ones were full, and she wouldn't go anywhere that would separate them. "I've applied for 17 apartments," she said, staring into her coffee. "But they all want last month, security deposit, and proof of income that's 3 times the rent. I make decent money, but I can't save enough for all that up front when I'm trying to keep us fed." David felt something crack open in his chest. He thought about his own apartment, the 2nd bedroom he used as an office that was really just a place to pile boxes. He thought about the promotion he'd gotten last year, the raise that had finally let him breathe. He thought about his mother, who'd worked 3 jobs to keep them housed, who'd have starved before letting him miss a meal. "I might have an idea," he said slowly, "but I need you to hear me out before you say no." David's brother owned a small property management company. One of his buildings had a vacant unit, nothing fancy but clean and safe. The tenant had left mid-month, so there were 2 weeks of prepaid rent just sitting there, and David's own landlord had been asking him for months to recruit good tenants for the building he lived in, offering a referral bonus. By the time they finished their 2nd cup of coffee, David had called his brother, who'd called his client, who'd agreed to meet Elena the next morning. David's referral bonus would cover her security deposit. The 2 weeks of prepaid rent would give her breathing room to get her paychecks organized. "I can't accept this," Elena said, but her eyes were bright with tears. "It's too much. You don't even know us." "I know enough," David said. "I know you're a mother doing everything she can for her son. I know you're not asking for handouts, just a chance. And I know that my mother was you 28 years ago. Someone gave her a chance, a landlord who accepted her partial deposit and let her pay the rest over 3 months. She never forgot it. Neither did I." Marcus had fallen asleep in the booth, his head on his mother's lap, his face peaceful for the first time that evening. Elena stroked his hair with trembling fingers. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you do this for strangers?" David thought about the empty chair at the restaurant, about the flowers wilting in his car, about the evening he'd spent imagining a different future, and he realized that maybe he'd been waiting at the wrong table for the wrong person. Maybe the universe had other plans, because maybe this is what I was supposed to do tonight, he said. Maybe she wasn't supposed to show up. Maybe I was supposed to be standing under that awning at exactly that moment, looking across the street. Maybe this was the point all along. 6 months later, David received a photo in the mail. It showed Elena and Marcus standing in front of their apartment building, both smiling. Marcus was holding a report card with straight A's. On the back, Elena had written, "He tells everyone about the kind man who helped his mama when she was scared. You taught him that people can be good. You taught me to never stop believing. Thank you for seeing us when the world looked away." David pinned the photo to his fridge, right next to a picture of his mother. And when his friends asked him about his dating life, about that blind date that never showed up, he'd smile and say, "It didn't work out the way I expected." But it worked out exactly the way it was supposed to, because sometimes the connections we're meant to make aren't the ones we plan for. Sometimes they're the ones that find us when we're brave enough to step into the rain, to see the people the world has taught us to overlook, to remember that we're all just one bad month, one missed paycheck, one broken system away from needing a stranger's kindness. And sometimes the love story isn't about finding romance. It's about finding our humanity and having the courage to act on it.